What if one small act of kindness changed your entire life? Ethan Walker, a 61-year-old retired Marine, ran Walker's Family Market in the quiet town of Pine Ridge. For more than 3 decades, the small grocery store had 6 narrow aisles, a small produce section, and an old checkout counter. But for the town, it was the heart of everything. Most people never knew. Ethan served 14 years in the Marines and never talked about it. He kept his past locked away behind a faded photo, and a box of medals hidden in his office business had become hard. 9 months earlier, a large supermarket opened near town and slowly took all his customers. For the first time in years, Ethan struggled to pay the bank that morning. His wife Linda placed bills on the table and said, "The mortgage is coming soon. We are running out of time." Their son Ryan was serving overseas, and they always told him everything was fine, even when it was not that evening. Just before closing, the bell rang. A young family entered Michael Brooks. His wife Anna and their 2 children walked slowly through the aisles. They picked only the cheapest food and never complained. Ethan noticed how Michael kept checking prices and putting items back. The children stayed quiet, watching their parents try to manage by the time they reached the counter. They had only basic items: bread, eggs, pasta, and a few bruised apples. Ethan asked if they were new. Michael said they had just moved after he left the army. Ethan immediately noticed his posture, his movements, and the slight injury in his leg. It reminded him of his own past when the total reached $41. Michael opened his wallet, but froze. He did not have enough money. The children looked at the food behind the counter and stayed silent. Ethan recognized that feeling. Without saying anything, he changed the price on the register and said, "Today is Veterans Appreciation Day." Michael looked confused and asked, "How did you know?" Ethan smiled and said, "You can always recognize one of your own." He added extra food into the bag: sandwiches, milk, and fruit. Anna tried to refuse, but Ethan said, "It is already done." Michael finally admitted he served 6 years in the Army. Ethan said he was in the Marines later when the family left. Ethan quietly placed a $100 bill in their bag with a note that said, "No need to repay. Take care of your family." Then he watched them leave into the night while wondering if he had just made a mistake upstairs. His wife looked at him and knew he had helped someone again, and she feared what it might cost them. Both of them went to sleep, not knowing that everything was about to change. Next morning, Ethan opened the store early as usual, trying to act normal, but the worry about bills stayed in his mind. He arranged the shelves, brewed coffee, and greeted regular customers. But something felt different, like the air itself was waiting for something around mid-morning. A deep sound rolled through Pine Ridge like thunder, but the sky was clear. People stepped outside confused. Then the sound grew louder and several military vehicles entered the town. Slowly, a convoy of armored trucks and black SUVs moved down the main street and stopped directly in front of Walker's Family Market. Ethan felt his stomach drop. He did not understand what was happening. Soldiers stepped out and surrounded the building in perfect formation. Neighbors gathered, phones came out, and everyone was watching. Ethan thought maybe something had happened to his son Ryan overseas. A senior officer entered the store and asked for Ethan Walker. Ethan said yes and was told to come outside with his wife. Linda came down, frightened, asking what is going on. But Ethan had no answer. They stepped outside into a silent street filled with soldiers and shocked neighbors. The officer asked about a man named Michael Brooks. Ethan explained everything from the night before, how he helped him with food discount sandwiches and money. The officer listened carefully, then asked if Michael said who he really was. Ethan said only that he was a former soldier. At that moment, another vehicle arrived and Michael stepped out. But now he was in full uniform decorated with medals and a visible rank. He looked completely different from the tired man in the store. Michael said he never wanted special treatment and wanted to live quietly. Ethan was shocked and asked who he really was. Michael said he was Lieutenant Colonel Michael Brooks and had served many years leading troops. Ethan could not believe it. Michael then said something important about Ethan. Son Ryan Ethan immediately tensed, and the entire crowd went silent. Michael explained that Ryan had been part of his unit, and during a mission, there was an explosion. Ryan was trapped and Michael went back to save him, despite being injured himself. That was how he got his leg injury. Ethan and Linda stood frozen, trying to process everything Michael said. Ryan was alive because of him and currently safe recovering. Ethan could not speak, and Linda began to cry as the truth hit them both that the stranger they helped the night before was the same man who saved their son. Ethan stood in shock, trying to understand everything. Michael Brooks continued speaking calmly, explaining that the mission where Ryan was trapped had been chaotic and dangerous, and that he had disobeyed orders to go back inside the collapsing structure because he could not leave a soldier behind, especially someone under his command. Ethan felt his knees weaken as he realized the man he helped in his small store had risked his life for his own son. Linda held Ethan tightly, crying in silence. Michael said Ryan had suffered injuries but was evacuated and was now safe at a medical facility recovering. Ethan whispered that he had no idea, and Michael said he was never supposed to know because he did not want recognition or attention. The officer standing nearby then stepped forward and signaled toward the trucks parked along the street. Doors opened and soldiers began unloading supplies instead of weapons. There were boxes of food medical kits, household goods and essentials being brought into the store. Neighbors rushed to help as the empty shelves began filling again. Ethan could not believe what he was seeing. Everything he had lost to the big supermarket was being replaced in minutes. A military relief fund officer approached and handed Ethan an envelope. Ethan opened it and saw a check large enough to completely pay off his debt. He looked at Linda and both were speechless. The officer said the support came from Michael Unit and others who heard what Ethan did for him. Michael had reported the kindness he received, and the response was immediate. Then suddenly another figure appeared through the crowd. A young woman in military uniform stepped forward and Ethan froze. It was Ryan Ethan. Heart stopped for a second before the woman removed her cap and revealed she was his daughter, Captain Sarah Walker. She had arrived with emergency leave. Ethan ran toward her and embraced her tightly, crying as he realized his whole family was safe. Ryan appeared moments later, and the family reunited in tears, holding each other, while Michael watched quietly from a distance, knowing everything had come full circle. Ethan, still holding his daughter Sarah, could not believe what was happening around him. The military convoy slowly turned into a rescue operation for his life, instead of fear. There was movement and help everywhere. Soldiers and townspeople worked together, filling the old store with food and supplies. Ethan watched Michael standing quietly, as if this was not about him at all. A military officer approached and explained that a support fund had been activated. After hearing what Ethan did for Michael's family, they decided to respond immediately. Ethan opened another envelope and saw a document confirming full debt coverage for the store. Everything he had been losing for months was suddenly gone. Linda started crying again, but this time from relief. Ethan kept looking around, trying to understand how a simple act of kindness turned into something so large. Michael finally walked closer and said, "You helped me when I had nothing, and people like you remind others why they serve." Ethan shook his head, saying he only did what felt right. Michael replied that most people would not have done the same. Moments later, another soldier arrived and called out, "Sarah Walker." Ethan turned and saw his daughter standing there in uniform, alive and real. She walked forward slowly, and Ethan hugged her tightly, unable to speak. Ryan followed behind her, and the entire family reunited in tears. The crowd around them went silent, watching the moment Ethan thought he had lost everything. But now he was holding his children again. Michael stood back, watching quietly, knowing his mission was never just about survival, but about bringing people back together. The next days changed everything for Ethan Walker. The store was no longer struggling. Volunteers from the military and town helped rebuild it and restock everything. Customers returned, and even new people came from nearby towns to see what had happened. Ethan no longer felt alone in running the place. Linda felt peace for the first time in years. Michael visited again, but this time without soldiers or uniforms, Just as a normal visitor, he and Ethan talked quietly about service life and family. Michael said, "The hardest battle is not war, but returning home and trying to live again." Ethan understood that deeply. Ryan stayed with the family for a short time before returning to duty before leaving. He told his father that one small act had saved more lives than anyone could imagine. Sarah remained close to the store, helping when she could and supporting her parents. The town slowly turned the story into something bigger. People called it the Pine Ridge Miracle. But Ethan never liked that word, he always said. He just saw someone who needed help and acted on it. Michael, before leaving, told Ethan that when he walked into that store, he had lost faith in people, but walked out remembering why he still believed in them. Ethan simply nodded, not trying to take credit. As time passed, the store became a symbol of kindness and second chances. But for Ethan, it was always just his family store. In a small town where one decision changed everything and reminded everyone that even the smallest act can come back in ways no one can predict.